I never imagined that stitching up a bleeding stranger in my kitchen at 3 in the morning would change my life forever. But as I stood there, my hands covered in his blood, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, I knew there was no turning back. The man slumped against my kitchen counter was dying, and every instinct I had as a nurse screamed at me to save him, even though every rational thought in my head told me to call 911 and walk away. His name was Marco. At least that's what he told me between labored breaths as I cut away his blood-soaked shirt. The fabric was expensive, Italian silk if I had to guess, now ruined and sticky with crimson. The knife wound in his abdomen was deep, professional, meant to kill. Whoever had done this knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. "No hospital," he managed to say, his voice rough with pain but carrying an unmistakable note of command. His accent was thick, Italian, the kind that spoke of old money and older traditions. "Per favor, please." My hands trembled as I gathered my supplies. My small Brooklyn apartment had never felt more inadequate than it did in that moment. The fluorescent light above my kitchen sink flickered, casting harsh shadows across his face. He was beautiful in a dangerous way. Strong jaw darkened with stubble, prominent nose, full lips now pressed together against the pain. His eyes, dark as espresso, followed my every movement with an intensity that should have frightened me more than it did. "I'm Mia," I heard myself say, as if introducing myself to a dying man in my kitchen was the most normal thing in the world. "I'm a nurse. I work at Brooklyn General." "But you need a hospital, you need surgery, you need you," he interrupted. His large hand suddenly gripping my wrist with surprising strength for someone losing so much blood. "I need you, Mia, only you. Trust me when I say a hospital would be worse than death." The way he said it, the absolute certainty in his voice, the shadow that passed over his features, it told me this wasn't just paranoia or shock talking. This man had reasons, real ones, for avoiding official help. Reasons that probably involved the law or something even more dangerous. I should have called the police. I should have pushed him out of my apartment and locked my door. Instead, I found myself nodding, pulling out my personal medical kit from under the bathroom sink, the one I kept stocked for emergencies. I'd always imagined using it for a neighbor's injury or my own cuts and bruises. Never for performing impromptu surgery on a stranger who looked like he'd walked out of a Mafia movie. "This is going to hurt," I warned him, threading a curved needle with surgical suture. My hands had stopped shaking. Training kicked in, that automatic response that came from years of working in emergency rooms, of staying calm when everything around me was chaos. Marco's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it wasn't tight with pain. "Dolcezza," he murmured. "I've been hurt before." "Do what you must." The endearment caught me off guard. Dolcezza. Sweetness. The way it rolled off his tongue, intimate and warm despite our circumstances, sent an unexpected flutter through my chest. I pushed the feeling aside and focused on the wound. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I cleaned, sutured, bandaged, all while acutely aware of Marco's eyes on me, watching with a focus that felt almost physical. He never cried out, though I knew the pain must have been excruciating. His only concessions were the tightening of his jaw, the whitening of his knuckles as he gripped the edge of my counter, and the occasional Italian curse that slipped from his lips. "Where did you learn this?" he asked during a brief pause when I stepped back to check my work. His voice was stronger now, though still strained. "Nursing school," I answered, wiping sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand. 2 years in the area at Brooklyn General. You see enough knife wounds in that neighborhood, you get good at treating them. "You're very good," he observed, his dark eyes holding mine. "Delicate hands, but strong. Steady. You don't panic." "Panicking doesn't save lives," I replied, returning to my work. But I could feel the heat of a blush creeping up my neck. There was something in the way he looked at me, as if he was seeing more than just the exhausted nurse in wrinkled scrubs with her hair falling out of its messy bun. "Tell me about yourself, Mia Rodriguez," he said, reading my last name from the mail scattered on my counter. "Why does a skilled nurse live alone in a small apartment in this neighborhood? Why are you walking home at 3 in the morning?" I hesitated, unused to talking about myself, especially to strangers. But something about the situation, about the intimacy of having my hands literally inside his body, holding his life together with needle and thread, made normal social barriers feel absurd. "Double shifts," I said finally. "My mother is sick. Early onset Alzheimer's." She's in a care facility in Queens, the good kind, the kind that actually treats patients like human beings. It costs more than I make, even with the extra shifts, I laughed, a bitter sound. So here I am, living in a shoebox, walking through dangerous neighborhoods at ungodly hours, trying to save strangers who probably don't want to be saved. Marco was quiet for a long moment. When I glanced at his face, I found an expression there that I couldn't quite read, something between respect and an emotion that looked almost like pain, though not the physical kind. Your mother is fortunate to have such a devoted daughter, he said softly. Family is everything. The sacrifices we make for them, they define who we are. There was a weight to his words that suggested he knew something about sacrifice, about family obligation. I wanted to ask, wanted to know who this man was beyond the expensive suit and the dangerous wound, but I kept my questions to myself. Some things were better left unknown. By the time I finished, dawn was beginning to break outside my small window. The early morning light filtered through the thin curtains, painting everything in shades of gray and gold. Marco had been moved to my couch, a feat that had required all my strength and his barely there assistance. He was too tall for it, his feet hanging off the end, but he hadn't complained. I cleaned the blood from his skin as best I could, revealing more of the body underneath. My professional detachment had wavered then. He was built like a classical statue, all hard muscle and masculine strength, marred only by scars that told stories of violence survived. The fresh wound I closed was just the latest addition to a map of pain etched into his flesh. You should sleep, Marco said, his voice pulling me from my thoughts. I'd been sitting in the chair across from him, my medical supplies finally packed away. My hands scrubbed clean, though I could still feel the phantom sensation of his blood, warm and wet. I should watch you, I countered. Make sure you don't develop a fever, that there's no internal bleeding I missed. That, Mia. The way he said my name stopped me mid-sentence. It was gentle but firm, the tone of someone used to being obeyed. You're exhausted. You've been working for almost 20 hours straight. Sleep. I promise I won't die on your couch. The ghost of a smile played at his lips, and I found myself smiling back despite everything. There was something absurd about the whole situation, something that made laughter bubble up in my throat. Hysteria, probably the crash after the adrenaline. Fine, I conceded, too tired to argue. But if you feel anything wrong, anything at all, you wake me. Promise? Prometto, he said. I promise. On my life, Dolcezza, I stumbled to my bedroom, not even bothering to change out of my blood-stained scrubs. I meant to just rest my eyes for a moment to stay alert in case Marco needed me. But the moment my head hit the pillow, sleep dragged me under like a riptide. I dreamed of dark eyes and Italian words I didn't understand, of hands that could kill but touched me with unexpected gentleness, of a life that wasn't mine lived in shadows and secrets. In my dream, Marco stood in my kitchen not wounded but whole, powerful, dangerous. He reached for me and I didn't pull away. I woke to the sound of engines, multiple engines. The kind of smooth, expensive purr that didn't belong in my neighborhood where cars were old and temperamental. My eyes snapped open, my heart immediately racing. Sunlight streamed through my window. I'd slept for hours. Marco. I practically fell out of bed, my body protesting every movement. Every muscle ached from the night's exertion, from supporting his weight, from hours of tense concentration. I rushed into the living room, fear clawing at my throat. Had he died while I slept? Had I failed him after everything? But Marco was awake, very much alive, sitting up on my couch despite what should have been incapacitating pain. And he wasn't alone. My apartment, my tiny studio that barely fit me and my few possessions, was full of men. 8 of them, all wearing dark suits that looked as expensive as Marco's ruined one. They stood like soldiers, positioned around the room with military precision, their eyes constantly moving, assessing, watching. The oldest of them, a man in his 50s with silver threaded through his dark hair and a scar running from his left eye to his jaw, stood closest to Marco. When he saw me frozen in my bedroom doorway, his expression shifted from concern to something else entirely, respect, deference. He moved toward me and I instinctively took a step back. But he didn't advance further. Instead, he did something that made my blood run cold and my heart stop simultaneously. He bowed. Actually bowed like something out of a period drama, his head lowering in genuine respect. Donna, he said, his voice gravelly and heavily accented. Don Marco is safe because of you. The family is in your debt, Donna. The word echoed in my head, familiar from Italian movies and books, but hearing it applied to me, spoken with such reverence, was surreal. It meant lady, but in this context, in this world these men clearly inhabited, it meant so much more. I looked past him to Marco, seeking an explanation, needing him to tell me this was some kind of mistake or joke. But Marco's face was serious, his dark eyes locked on mine with an intensity that stole my breath. "Mia," he said, his voice carrying easily across the room despite his weakened state. "These are my men, my family. And they're right, I owe you my life. I don't understand," I managed to say, though that was a lie. I understood perfectly well, I just didn't want to believe it. The expensive suits, the knife wound, the refusal to go to a hospital. The way these dangerous-looking men deferred to him even as he sat wounded on my second-hand couch, Marco Valentino. The name suddenly clicked into place with memories of news reports. Whispered neighborhood gossip, warnings from veteran nurses about certain patients who came into the EA with specific injuries and left with police escorts. The Valentino family. One of the 5 families that had controlled organized crime in New York for generations. And I just saved their boss's life in my kitchen. "I think you do understand, Dolcezza," Marco said softly, reading my expression with unnerving accuracy. He tried to stand, and immediately 2 of his men moved to assist him, but he waved them off with barely concealed irritation. He rose on his own, slower than normal, but with that same commanding presence I'd seen even when he was bleeding out on my floor. He crossed to me, each step measured and careful, and I saw the pain he was hiding from his men. Saw it in the tightness around his eyes, even as he kept his back straight and his head high. When he stood before me, so close I could smell the masculine scent of him underneath the antiseptic and blood, he reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm, calloused, much larger than mine. He raised my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles with old-world courtesy, his eyes never leaving mine. "You saved my life," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "In my world, that creates a bond, an obligation that can never be broken. You are under the protection of the Valentino family now. You are Donna, whether you accept the title or not. I don't want protection," I whispered, trying to pull my hand back. But he held firm, not painfully, but enough to keep me there, anchored to him and this moment that was changing everything. "I just wanted to help someone who was hurt. I'm a nurse, it's what I do. And I am what I am," Marco replied. "Il Capo, the boss, and everyone in this city knows it. By tomorrow, everyone will know that you saved me. My enemies will know. They'll wonder who you are, what you mean to me. They'll see you as leverage, as a weakness. Fear, cold and sharp, pierce through my confusion. Then tell them I'm nothing. Tell them I was just too late, Mia." His thumb brushed over my knuckles, a gesture that should have been comforting but felt more like a claim. "The moment you brought me into your home, the moment you put your hands on me and decided my life was worth saving, it was too late. You're part of this world now. The only question is whether you accept my protection or try to face what's coming alone." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that I could just go back to my life, my double shifts in my small apartment and my sick mother. But I wasn't naive. I'd seen enough in the A to know how this world worked, how violence rippled outward from its source, touching everyone in its path. What does it mean? I asked instead, hating how small my voice sounded. "Being Donna? Having your protection?" Something flickered in Marco's eyes, something warm and possessive that sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. "It means you're mine to protect," he said simply. "It means no one touches you, threatens you, or even looks at you wrong without answering to me. It means you want for nothing your mother's care, your apartment, your safety, all of it falls under my responsibility now. And what do you get?" I couldn't help asking. "Men like you don't give something for nothing." A slow smile curved his lips, transforming his face from merely handsome to devastating. "Smart as well as skilled," he murmured. "What do I get? Your company, Dolcezza, your time. The chance to know the woman who saved my life when she had every reason to let me die in that alley. That's all." I didn't believe him. Couldn't believe him. "For now," he said, and his honesty surprised me. "I won't lie to you, Mia, I want more. From the moment I opened my eyes and saw you standing over me, determination in every line of your face, refusing to let death take me, I wanted more. But I'm a patient man. I can wait for you to see what I already know." "And what's that?" My heart was pounding now, fear and something else something dangerous and thrilling mixing in my veins. Marco leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath on my face, see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. That you were meant to be mine and I was meant to be yours, destiny, fate, whatever you want to call it. You saved me for a reason, Mia Rodriguez. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Before I could respond, before I could process the absolute certainty in his voice, one of his men cleared his throat. Del Marco, we should move you somewhere more secure. Your wound can wait, Marco said without looking away from me. First, we make arrangements for Donna's safety. I want security on this building within the hour, discreet but thorough. No one comes near her without my knowledge. That's not necessary, I started, but Marco's hand tightened on mine. It is necessary. It's already done. His voice held that note of command again. The one that said argument was futile. Then his expression softened slightly. Please, Mia, let me do this. Let me know you're safe while I recover. And there it was, the crack in his armor. He was worried. This powerful, dangerous man who commanded respect and fear in equal measure was worried about me. I could see it in his eyes, in the tension of his jaw. Okay, I heard myself say. For now, until you're healed. Then we talk about this, about all of this, and figure out what happens next. Relief washed over his features. Vi bene. That's all I ask, dolcezza. He kissed my hand again, lingering this time, and I felt the warmth of his lips like a brand on my skin. The man with the scar stepped forward again. Donna, I am Anthony Russo, Del Marco's consigliere. If you need anything at all, you call me directly. He held out a business card, simple black with just a phone number embossed in silver. I took it with my free hand, Marco still holding the other captive. Thank you, Mr. Russo. Anthony, per favor, he corrected with a slight smile that made his scar pucker. We are family now. Family. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning and implications I wasn't ready to examine. Marco finally, reluctantly, released my hand. I need to go to be seen leaving here on my own feet. It's important that my enemies know I survived, but they failed. He glanced at his men. But you'll stay here in your home where you're safe. Antonio will be outside your door. He's the best I have. Nothing will get past him. A young man, probably mid-20s with kind eyes and a gentle face that seemed at odds with the gun I could see holstered under his suit jacket, stepped forward and nodded to me. Donna, Mia, I corrected automatically. Just Mia, Antonio smiled. As you wish, Miss Mia. Marco moved toward the door, his men surrounding him in a protective formation that spoke of practice and protocol. At the threshold, he paused and turned back to me. Rest today, he ordered, though his tone was gentle. You worked a double shift and then saved my life. You're exhausted. Before I could protest that I had another shift tonight, he continued. I've already called your hospital. You're on paid leave for the next week. Your supervisor was very understanding when I explained you've been under considerable stress. You can't just... I started, anger sparking through my confusion and fear. I can, and I did, Marco said simply. Argue with me next week, Dolcezza, when you've rested and I've healed. For now, let me take care of you the way you took care of me. And with that, he was gone, his men flowing out of my apartment like a dark tide, leaving only Antonio standing guard in the hallway and me standing alone in my kitchen, my hands still remembering the warmth of Marco's blood, my lips still tingling from where he'd kissed my knuckles. I sank into the chair I'd occupied while watching over Marco through the night. My blood-stained scrubs were stiff and uncomfortable, my body ached, and my mind raced with everything that had just happened, everything that had changed in the span of a few hours. Through my window, I watched as a motorcade of black SUVs pulled away from my building, expensive and out of place in this neighborhood. Neighbors were peering out their windows, watching, wondering. By tonight, everyone would know something had happened here. By tomorrow, the rumors would be flying. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sleep, Dolcezza. I'll be thinking of you. I should have been terrified. I should have been planning my escape, figuring out how to disappear, how to protect myself from the world I'd inadvertently stepped into. Instead, I found myself touching my knuckles where Marco had kissed them, remembering the warmth in his eyes when he called me his, the absolute certainty in his voice when he spoke of destiny. I was in so much trouble. And the worst part? A traitorous part of my heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, I didn't want to escape at all. The week that followed was the strangest of my life. True to his word, Marco had arranged for my leave from the hospital. My supervisor had called personally, her voice tight with a nervousness I never heard before, assuring me that my job was secure and I should take all the time I needed. Antonio stood guard outside my door 24 hours a day. Though he rotated with another guard I learned was named Sal during the night shift. Both men were unfailingly polite, bringing me coffee in the mornings and ensuring I had everything I needed without being invasive. It was surreal having bodyguards, having someone watching over me every moment. My apartment building underwent subtle changes. New security cameras appeared. The broken lock on the front door was replaced with something that looked military-grade. My landlord, a cranky old man who'd never fixed anything in the 5 years I'd lived there, suddenly became attentive, asking if I needed anything repaired, if I was comfortable. Marco's reach was long and thorough. The flowers arrived on the second day. Not a small bouquet, but an arrangement so massive it barely fit through my door. White roses and calla lily, elegant and expensive, with a card in bold, masculine handwriting. Thank you for my life. On the third day, I received a call from my mother's care facility. Her account had been paid in full for the next 5 years. When I tried to protest to demand they reverse the payment, the administrator's voice had gone cold and professional in a way that told me arguing was pointless. The money had come from an anonymous benefactor who'd made it clear the payment was non-refundable. I knew exactly who that benefactor was. I tried to be angry. I paced my small apartment, ranting to Antonio through the door about manipulation and control and how I didn't need some crime boss paying my bills. Antonio had just listened patiently, and when I'd finally run out of steam, he'd said quietly, "Don Marco takes care of his own, Miss Mia. It's not about control. It's about honor." By the 4th day, I'd stopped trying to fight it. The relief of not having to work double shifts, of knowing my mother was secure, was too overwhelming. I slept for what felt like the first time in years. Truly slept without the constant anxiety of bills and debts crushing my chest. And every day, Marco texted, never anything invasive or demanding. Just small messages. How are you feeling today? Antonio says you barely ate breakfast. Please take care of yourself, dolcezza. I'm healing well. Your hands worked miracles. Are you comfortable? Is there anything you need? I told myself I wouldn't respond. That engaging with him was accepting this new reality, this dangerous world he pulled me into. But by the 5th day, I found myself texting back. I'm fine. How's your wound? His response was immediate. Much better. Would you like to see for yourself? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment where I could pull back, maintain distance, keep this purely professional, a nurse checking on a former patient. But my heart was pounding and my palms were sweaty, and I realized I wanted to see him with an intensity that had nothing to do with medical concern. Where? I typed before I could second-guess myself. I'll send a car. 1 hour. I had 45 minutes of panic after that text, standing in front of my closet, realizing I had nothing appropriate to wear to meet a Mafia boss. Everything I owned was either scrubs or casual clothes suitable for a nurse's budget and lifestyle. Finally, I settled on my nicest jeans and a soft blue sweater that brought out my eyes. Minimal makeup because I didn't owe much anyway. My long dark hair looser on my shoulders instead of in its usual practical bun. Antonio's eyes widened slightly when I emerged from my apartment, and something that might have been approval crossed his young face. You look beautiful, Miss Mia, he said respectfully. Don Marco is a lucky man. This isn't, we're not, I stammered, but Antonio just smiled and led me downstairs. The car waiting at the curb was not what I'd expected. Instead of a menacing black SUV, it was a sleek, dark blue sedan, expensive but understated. The driver was an older man with kind eyes who introduced himself as Giuseppe and spoke with a thick Italian accent as he explained he'd been with the Valentino family for 40 years. Don Marco's father, God rest his soul. He trusted me with his children when they were small, Giuseppe said as he navigated through Brooklyn traffic. Now I have the honor of driving for young Marco, and for you, Donna, please, just Mia, I said for what felt like the 100th time that week. Giuseppe met my eyes in the rearview mirror, his weathered face serious. In this family, respect is everything. Don Marco has claimed you as Donna. To call you anything less would be disrespectful to him and to you. I subsided into silence, watching the familiar streets of Brooklyn give way to more affluent neighborhoods. We crossed into what I recognized as Carroll Gardens. one of the old Italian neighborhoods that had somehow resisted complete gentrification. The houses here were beautiful, historic brownstones with well-maintained facades and small, perfect gardens. Giuseppe pulled up in front of a particularly stunning brownstone. 3 stories of classic architecture with intricate ironwork and a black door that gleamed with fresh paint. "We're here, Donna." Before I could reach for the door handle, it opened from the outside. Anthony Russo stood there, his scarred face warming with a smile. "Donna, welcome to Don Marco's home. He's been waiting for you." The interior of the brownstone was breathtaking. Original hardwood floors gleamed under tasteful rugs. The walls were painted in warm, rich colors and hung with what looked like original artwork. The furniture was a perfect blend of modern comfort and classical elegance. Everything spoke of money, yes, but also of history, of family, of a life built over generations. Anthony led me through a hallway lined with photographs. I caught glimpses of a younger Marco with an older couple who must have been his parents, of family gatherings and formal events. In every photo, even as a child, Marco had that same intensity in his eyes, that same commanding presence. "He's in the study," Anthony said, stopping before a heavy wooden door. "He's been like a caged animal all week, furious that he had to rest, desperate to see you." He paused, his expression becoming paternal. "Be patient with him, Donna. He's not used to wanting something he can't simply take." Before I could ask what he meant by that, Anthony knocked and opened the door. The study was masculine and rich, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, leather furniture, and a fireplace with a low fire burning. And there, standing by the window looking out over a small private garden, was Marco. He'd showered and changed since I'd last seen him. His hair was still damp, curling slightly at the nape of his neck. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and scattered with more of those telling scars. When he turned at the sound of the door, the late afternoon light streaming through the window behind him created a halo effect that made my breath catch. "Mia," he said, and my name in his deep voice, with that Italian accent curling around the syllables, did something to my insides that I absolutely was not ready to examine. "Marco," I managed, staying by the door, suddenly nervous. "How are you feeling?" A slow smile curved his lips. "Come see for yourself, Dottoressa, doctor. You did the work, you should inspect it." He was baiting me, I knew, using my professional instincts to get me closer, and damn him, it worked. I crossed the room, my training overriding my nervousness, my hands already reaching for the hem of his shirt. "Let me see." Marco stood perfectly still as I lifted his shirt, revealing the top muscles of his abdomen and the white bandage covering my handiwork. His skin was warm under my fingers as I carefully peeled back the tape. The wound looked good, no signs of infection, the sutures holding, healing well. "You've been following instructions," I observed, relief making my voice soft. "Keeping it clean, not overexerting yourself." "I had incentive," Marco said quietly. I was so close I could feel the heat of his body, smell the clean scent of his soap mixed with something uniquely him. "I wanted to be healed when I saw you again. Wanted to be strong for you." I looked up and found his dark eyes already on my face, intense and focused. We were inches apart, his shirt still gathered in my hands, his abs contracting slightly with each breath under my touch. The air between us felt electric, charged with something that had been building since that first night in my kitchen. "Mia," he said, his voice rough, "I need to know something. Are you here because you're obligated? Because you feel you owe me something? Or because you wanted to see me?" Honesty seemed important in this moment, with my hands on his skin and his eyes seeing right through every defense I'd tried to build. "I wanted to see you," I admitted quietly. "I've been thinking about you. About that night. About everything that's happened since. And what have you been thinking?" His hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. When I didn't, his fingers brushed my cheek, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with unexpected gentleness. "That I should be more afraid than I am," I said honestly. "That I should be running. That this is crazy and dangerous and not my world. But," he prompted when I paused. "But I can't stop thinking about you," I whispered. "About the way you looked at me that night. About how you kissed my hand. About your texts and the flowers and my mother's care being paid for. About how you're turning my life upside down and I should hate it, but I don't." Marco's hand slid from my cheek to cup the back of my neck, his thumb brushing the sensitive skin there. "Do you know what I thought, Mia, when I woke up in your kitchen and saw you standing over me like an avenging angel?" I shook my head, unable to look away from his eyes. I thought, this is the woman I've been waiting for, not because you were beautiful, though you are. Not because you saved my life, though you did. But because you looked at me, really looked at me, and you weren't afraid. You saw the blood, saw the danger, knew what I was, and you chose to help anyway. You chose mercy over fear. Compassion over self-preservation. His other hand came up to frame my face, his touch reverent. In my world, Maya, people either fear me or want something from me. But you wanted nothing, expected nothing. You saved me because it was the right thing to do, because you couldn't live with yourself if you didn't. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious, Marco, I started, but he wasn't finished. I know this is fast. I know you need time. But I need you to know that when I call you mine, when I claim you as Donna, it's not possession, it's a promise. The promise that I will protect you, care for you, cherish you for the rest of my life. A promise that everything I have, everything I am, is yours if you want it. Why? The question came out barely above a whisper. You barely know me. I know enough, he said with that maddening certainty. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for your mother. I know you live in a shoebox apartment but keep it spotlessly clean. I know you walk through dangerous neighborhoods at 3 a.m. and still stop to help a bleeding stranger. I know you have hands that can save lives and a heart big enough to risk your own safety for someone else. What else do I need to know? Everything, I said, my own hands coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady under my palms. You need to know everything. My favorite color, what makes me laugh, what I dream about, what scares me, blue. Marco interrupted, a smile playing at his lips. Your favorite color is blue. That's why you chose that sweater today, because it makes you feel confident. You laugh at terrible puns and sarcastic comments, the kind of humor that catches you off guard. You dream about a life where you don't have to worry about money, where you can just take care of people without the weight of bills and debts crushing you. And what scares you is being helpless, being unable to protect the people you love. I stared at him, my heart pounding. I pay attention, Dosetsa, he said softly. I've been paying attention since the moment I met you. Did you think those texts were just polite check-ins? I was learning you, understanding you. Every response, every word choice, every time you sent a message at 2 a.m. because you couldn't sleep, I was collecting pieces of you, putting together the puzzle of the woman who saved my life. It should have been creepy. It should have felt invasive and stalkerish. Instead, it felt like being seen, really seen, maybe for the first time in my life. All my life, I'd been the caretaker, the responsible one, the person everyone leaned on. No one had ever thought to learn what I needed, what I wanted, who I was beneath the scrubs and the tired smile. I'm scared, I admitted, honesty spilling out. Not of you, but of this. Of how much I want this when I should be running. Of how right this feels when it should feel wrong. Then don't run, Marco said, his forehead coming to rest against mine. Stay, give this a chance. Give us a chance. I promise you, Mia, I will spend every day proving that you made the right choice when you saved my life. And if your enemies come for me? I had to ask, had to voice the fear that had been lurking in the back of my mind all week. If being with you puts me in danger? Marco's hands tightened on my face, his eyes going hard and dangerous. Then they'll learn why I'm called the most dangerous man in New York, he said, his voice cold steel. Anyone who touches you, threatens you, even thinks about harming you, will wish they'd never been born. You are under my protection, Mia. That means something in this city. That means everything. What about my job? I asked. My life? I can't just become some mafia wife who sits at home waiting for her husband. The word husband slipped out before. I could catch it and I felt my face flush. But Marco's eyes lit up, a predatory satisfaction crossing his features. Wife, he repeated, tasting the word. I like the sound of that, Dosetsa. But no, I would never ask you to give up your calling. You're a nurse, that's part of who you are. I would never take that away from you. He paused, considering. Though perhaps we could discuss you working somewhere. Safer than the Brooklyn General AI have connections at several private hospitals that would be honored to have someone of your skill. You can't just rearrange my entire life, I protested. But it was weak. Because wasn't that exactly what he was doing? What I was letting him do. I can, Marco said simply. And I will if it means keeping you safe and happy. That's what you don't understand yet, Mia. In this life with me, you'll never have to sacrifice your dreams for practicality again. You want to be a nurse? You'll be the best nurse in the best hospital. You want to take care of your mother? She'll have the finest care money can buy. You want to live somewhere bigger than a shoebox? I have a 4-bedroom apartment sitting empty that I've been meaning to fill. He pulled back slightly, his hand sliding down to take mine. I'm not trying to control you or change you, Dolcezza. I'm trying to give you the life you deserve, the one you've been denying yourself while you take care of everyone else. Let me take care of you for a change. Let me be the one who makes sure you're safe, fed, rested. Let me be the one who carries your burdens so you can just breathe. And God help me, I wanted it. Wanted it with an intensity that terrified me. The idea of not having to worry, of having someone strong and capable taking care of the logistics while I focused on healing people, it was seductive, dangerous, everything I'd never let myself dream about because it felt too impossible, too much like a fairy tale. This is insane, I whispered, but I didn't pull my hands from his. Completely. Marco agreed with a small smile. But the best things in life usually are. His thumbs rubbed circles on the backs of my hands, soothing. I'm not asking you to decide everything right now, Mia. I'm just asking you to stay for dinner, to talk with me, get to know me. Give me a chance to prove I'm more than just the dangerous man who showed up bleeding in your alley. You paid for my mother's care for 5 years, I said, still trying to process that. Marco, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. He shrugged, unconcerned. Money I would have spent on far less worthy things. Your mother's care, your peace of mind, that's priceless to me. Because it's priceless to you. I can't pay you back, I said helplessly. I don't want you to pay me back, Marco said, his voice firm. This isn't a loan, Dolcezza, it's a gift. Accept it. Let yourself have this one thing without guilt or obligation. Before I could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. Anthony's voice came through, "Don't, Marco, dinner is ready when you are." Marco's eyes never left mine. Are you staying, Mia? Will you have dinner with me? I should have said no. Should have called for Antonio to take me home, should have put distance between myself and this man who was turning my world upside down with his intensity, and his gifts and his absolute certainty that we belonged together. Instead, I found myself nodding. Yes, I'll stay for dinner. The smile that broke across. Marco's face was like the sun coming out from behind clouds, warm, brilliant, transforming his normally serious features into something almost boyish. Grazie, Dolcezza, he murmured, raising my hands to his lips and kissing each knuckle in turn. You won't regret it. Dinner was served in an elegant dining room with a table that could seat 12 but was set intimately for 2 at one end. The food was incredible homemade pasta, perfectly cooked veal, fresh bread that was still warm, and a tiramisu for dessert that made me close my eyes in bliss at the first bite. Marco watched me eat with undisguised pleasure, barely touching his own food. My grandmother's recipes, he explained when I complimented the meal. She insisted I learn to cook properly, said a man who couldn't feed himself was no man at all. These days I have a chef, but sometimes I still make Sunday dinner myself, the way she taught me. Your grandmother sounds like she was an incredible woman, I said, catching the fondness in his voice when he spoke of her. She was, Marco agreed. Strongest person I've ever known. She came to America with nothing, built a life here through sheer determination. She's the one who taught me that true strength isn't about violence or power, it's about protecting the people you love, no matter the cost. Is she? I trailed off, not wanting to be insensitive. She passed 5 years ago, Marco said, a shadow crossing his face. I was with her at the end. She made me promise I'd find a good woman, someone strong and kind, someone who saw beyond the life we lived to the man underneath. His dark eyes found mine across the table. I think she would have loved you. The casual intimacy of the statement, the implication that he'd already imagined me meeting his family should have scared me. Instead, it sent warmth blooming through my chest. We talked for hours. Marco told me about growing up in this world, about learning the family business from his father, about the weight of responsibility that came with being the boss. He was surprisingly open about the violence, the difficult choices, the constant threat that hung over everything. I won't lie to you about what I am, what I do, he said seriously. This life isn't pretty, Mia. I've done things that would horrify you. I've made choices that keep me awake at night. But everything I've done to protect this family. To keep our people safe, to honor the legacy my father left me. Do you ever wish you could walk away? I asked quietly. Live a normal life? Marco was quiet for a long moment, his fingers playing with his wine glass. Sometimes, he admitted. When I was younger, I dreamed of being a lawyer, arguing cases in court instead of in back rooms. But that's not my path. This family, these people who depend on me, they're my responsibility. I can't abandon them any more than you could abandon your mother. I understood that. Understood the weight of obligation, of duty, of caring for others at the expense of your own dreams. We were more alike than I realized, both of us shaped by the people we protected, defined by our willingness to sacrifice our own wants for others' needs. Tell me about your mother, Marco prompted, clearly wanting to shift to lighter topics. Anthony mentioned she was sick when he did the background check. You did a background check on me? I interrupted, torn between amusement and offense. Marco had the grace to look slightly sheepish. Of course I did. I needed to know if you were a threat, if someone had sent you to get close to me. It's standard procedure. And what did you learn? I asked, curious what a Mafia background check looked like. That you're exactly who you appeared to be, Marco said. Mia Rodriguez, 29 years old, born in Queens to Maria and Carlos Rodriguez. Father died when you were 15, construction accident. You put yourself through nursing school working 3 jobs. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. Your only vice appears to be an addiction to terrible reality TV shows and expensive coffee you can't afford. I felt my face heat. You know about my Netflix and Starbucks habits? I know everything about you, Dolcezza, Marco said, but his tone was gentle, not threatening. I know you call your mother every day even though she doesn't always remember who you are. I know you volunteer at a free clinic on your days off even though you're exhausted. I know you cry during commercials with puppies and you sing off-key in the shower. I know you're terrified of spiders, but you're the first person to run toward danger if someone needs help. I didn't even know what to call it. Invasive? Thorough? Romantic in a deeply disturbing way? Necessary, Marco finished for me, and honest. I needed to know who you were before I let myself fall for you. Now I know, and Mia. His hand reached across the table to cover mine. Everything I learned just made me want you more. After dinner, Marco gave me a tour of the brownstone. Each room was more beautiful than the last, a library with first editions and comfortable reading chairs, a media room with plush recliners, a kitchen that would make any chef weep with envy. But it was the top floor that took my breath away. This is going to be my space, Marco explained, showing me a large open room with skylights and windows overlooking the garden. A place to think, to escape when the weight of everything gets too heavy. But I never finished it. It always felt like something was missing. What? I asked, drawn to the windows and the view of the garden below, now lit with soft landscape lighting that made it look magical. You, Marco said simply, coming to stand behind me. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel his warmth. This space was waiting for you, I just didn't know it yet. I turned to face him, my back against the cool glass. Marco, this is all moving so fast. A week ago, I didn't even know you existed. Now you're talking about us like we're already together, like this is already decided. Isn't it? He asked, his hands coming up to frame my face again, that gesture I was already becoming addicted to. Be honest with yourself, Mia. When you think about walking away, going back to your old life, pretending this never happened, can you actually imagine doing it? Can you imagine not seeing me again? I couldn't. God help me, I couldn't. Even the thought of it made my chest tight with an emotion I wasn't ready to name. No, I whispered. I can't imagine it. But that doesn't mean this is smart or safe or Marco kissed me. It wasn't gentle or tentative, it was claiming and possessive and absolutely overwhelming. His lips were firm and demanding, one hand tangling in my hair while the other pressed against the small of my back, pulling me flush against him. I gasped at the contact, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss with a skill that made my knees weak. I'd been kissed before, but never like this. Never with such absolute focus and intensity. Like kissing me was the most important thing in the world, like he was trying to brand himself onto my soul. My hands fisted in his shirt, holding on as the world tilted and reformed around this new reality. Marco's lips on mine, his heart pounding against my palms, his scent surrounding me. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine, his hands still holding me like he was afraid I'd disappear. Still think walking away is an option, Dolcezza? He asked, his voice rough with desire and something deeper. That was unfair, I managed, my lips still tingling from the kiss. War and love, Mia, all's fair in both, Marco said with a small smile. Then his expression became serious again. I need you to understand something. I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things. I will probably do terrible things again. But with you, for you, I want to be better. You make me want to be the man you see when you look at me instead of the monster everyone else sees. I don't see a monster, I said honestly, my hand smoothing the wrinkles I created in his shirt. I see a man who's trying his best with impossible circumstances. I see someone who takes care of his people, who honors his family's memory, who protected me even when he was bleeding out. I see Marco, not the Don. His eyes closed as if my words caused him pain. You're going to destroy me, he murmured. Completely and utterly destroy me. Because now that I've had a taste of you seeing me that way, I'll never be able to let you go. Then don't, I heard myself say. Don't let me go. Marco's eyes snapped open, dark and intense and filled with something that looked like triumph and reverence mixed together. Is that a yes, Mia? Are you saying yes to this, to us, was I? Was I really ready to step into this world, to let this dangerous, intense man claim me as his? Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was crazy, too fast, too dangerous. But my heart, that foolish organ that had been lonely for so long, that had been carrying burdens alone for years, that had been waiting for someone to see me, really see me, my heart was singing. I'm saying yes to trying, I said carefully. To seeing where this goes. To giving us a chance. That's all I need, Marco said and kissed me again, softer this time, sweeter, a kiss that felt like a promise and a prayer. All I need, Dolcezza, is a chance. I'll take care of the rest. It was late when Giuseppe drove me home, Antonio resuming his post outside my door with a knowing smile that made me blush. My apartment felt different now, smaller, yes, but also safer, protected. The flowers Marco had sent earlier in the week still perfumed the air, a constant reminder of his presence in my life. My phone buzzed as I was getting ready for bed. Thank you for tonight, for giving us a chance. Sleep well, Dolcezza, dream of me. I smiled, typing back, good night, Marco, and thank you for dinner. Your grandmother's recipes were incredible. His response was immediate. Wait until you taste my Sunday gravy. I'll cook for you myself this weekend. Wear something you don't mind getting messy. I plan to teach you the family secrets. The easy assumption that we'd be spending the weekend together, that I'd be integrated into his life, his family traditions, it should have bothered me. Instead, it just made me smile wider. It's a date, I typed. The first of many amor mio. The first of forever. I fell asleep that night with my phone still in my hand, Marco's words echoing in my mind. A week ago, my life had been defined by exhaustion and worry, by double shifts and mounting bills, by the slow erosion of dreams under the weight of responsibility. Now I was Donna to one of the most dangerous men in New York. Now I had a future that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. Now I had Marco Valentino looking at me like, oh, his salvation, his reward for a lifetime of sacrifice and violence. I should have been more afraid. Should have been planning my escape, protecting my heart, maintaining my distance. Instead, I was already planning what to wear on Sunday, already imagining Marco's hands guiding mine as he taught me to make pasta, already dreaming of dark eyes and Italian endearments and a life I never dared to imagine. I was in so much trouble, and I couldn't wait to fall deeper. Sunday arrived wrapped in golden autumn sunshine that streamed through Marco's kitchen windows as I stood at the marble counter, flour dusting my hands and probably my face while Marco stood behind me, his chest pressed against my back, his hands covering mine as he guided me through the process of making fresh pasta dough. Feel the texture, he murmured against my ear, his breath warm on my neck. It should be smooth but not sticky. Like silk under your fingers. I tried to focus on the dough, on the technique he was teaching me, but it was impossible with him this close. He smelled like expensive cologne and fresh basil, and every time I moved, I felt the solid warmth of his body against mine, reminding me of the kiss we'd shared just days before. Marco, I said, trying to sound stern but failing miserably as my voice came out breathy. I can't learn anything when you're distracting me like this. His laugh was low and rich, vibrating through his chest into my back. Who says I'm trying to teach you, Dolcezza? Maybe I'm just looking for an excuse to hold you. I turned in his arms. finding his face just inches from mine, his dark eyes dancing with mischief and desire. "You don't need an excuse," I said boldly, surprising myself with my own directness. "Just ask. Can I hold you, Mia?" Marco asked seriously, all traces of teasing gone from his voice. "Can I wake up every morning knowing you're mine? Can I spend my life keeping you safe and happy and loved?" The word loved hung in the air between us, bigger and more terrifying than anything else he'd said. It was too soon for love, too fast, too impossible. Except when I looked into his eyes, I saw the truth of it there, not a passing infatuation or simple desire, but something deeper, something that had taken root that first night when I'd saved his life and had been growing ever since. "Marco," I whispered, my flower-covered hands coming up to touch his face, leaving white prints on his jaw. "We barely know each other. I know you saved my life when you could have let me die," he said, his hands settling on my waist, thumbs brushing the strip of skin where my shirt had ridden up. "I know you work yourself to exhaustion for people you love. I know you cry during sad movies and you can't cook to save your life. Hey!" I protested, but he just smiled and continued. "I know you bite your lip when you're nervous, like you're doing right now. I know you hum while you work and you always check on your patients one more time before you leave your shift. I know you dream of a garden and a dog and Sunday dinners with family. I know you're terrified of needing someone, of being vulnerable, because everyone you've ever loved has either left you or needs you to be strong for them." His accuracy stole my breath. "How do you—" "Because I pay attention," Marco said fiercely. "Because you're the most important thing in my world and I want to know everything. Every dream, every fear, every secret you've been carrying alone. I want to be the person you lean on, Mia. I want to be your strength so you can finally just be soft." Tears pricked my eyes. No one had ever offered me that before, the chance to not be the strong one, the caretaker, the person everyone depended on. The idea of having someone to depend on in return was intoxicating and terrifying. "I don't know how to not be strong," I admitted, my voice cracking slightly. "Then let me teach you," Marco said softly, "the way I'm teaching you to make pasta. Let me guide your hands until you learn the feel of it, until it becomes second nature to trust me, to let me carry some of your burdens." Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open and Anthony walked in, stopping short when he saw us. His scarred face broke into a knowing smile. "My apologies, Don Marco. I didn't realize you were occupied." I tried to step away from Marco, embarrassed to be caught in such an intimate moment, but his hands tightened on my waist, keeping me close. "What is it, Anthony?" Marco asked, his tone patient but firm. "The Ritchie family sent a representative," Anthony said, his expression becoming serious. "They want to meet with you. They heard about the attempt on your life and they want to discuss matters." I felt Marco tense against me, felt the shift from the gentle man teaching me to cook to the cold, calculating boss who ran a criminal empire. "When?" "Tomorrow night." "Neutral ground, Benedetta's restaurant." Anthony's eyes flicked to me, concerned. "They specifically asked if it was true about the Donna." Word has spread quickly. "Let them ask," Marco said coldly. "Mia is under my protection. That's all they need to know." "Marco," I said quietly, turning to face him, "if this is going to cause problems—" "No," he cut me off, his eyes fierce. "You don't get to sacrifice yourself for my convenience, Dolcetza. You are mine to protect and I will burn the city down before I let anyone threaten you." "The Ricci's want to meet?" "Fine, they can see that attacking me was a mistake and they can understand that you are permanently off limits." Anthony nodded approvingly. "I'll make the arrangements, and Don Marco?" "The men are asking about Donna Mia. They want to know if they should prepare for traditional celebrations." A slow smile crossed Marco's face. "Not yet, old friend. Give me time to convince her to make it permanent first." "Make what permanent?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what he meant. "Marriage, Dolcetza," Marco said easily, as if discussing wedding plans with a woman he'd known for barely over a week was perfectly normal. "You didn't think I was going to be satisfied with anything less, did you?" Anthony excused himself quickly, probably sensing an argument brewing. As soon as the door closed behind him, I spun to face Marco fully. "Marriage?" "Marco, we just started, whatever this is. We haven't even been on a real date." "This is a real date," Marco countered, gesturing to the kitchen around us, the pasta dough abandoned on the counter. "This is me sharing my grandmother's traditions with you, teaching you something that matters to me, wanting you in my space and my life. That's not what I meant and you know it, I said, exasperated and charmed in equal measure. Normal people date for months, years even, before they talk about marriage. Marco stepped closer, backing me against the counter, his hands braced on either side of me, caging me in. I'm not normal people, Mia. I can't afford to be. In my world, you mark what's yours quickly and completely, or someone else will try to take it. And I will not risk losing you because I followed some arbitrary social timeline. I'm not a thing to be marked and claimed, I protested weakly. Though my traitorous body was responding to his proximity, my heart racing and my breath coming faster. No, Marco agreed, one hand coming up to cut my face with devastating gentleness. You're not a thing. You're everything. You're the woman I'm going to marry, the mother of my future children, the Donna who will stand at my side and help me build a legacy that's about more than just violence and fear. You're my redemption, Mia, my second chance. And I'm selfish enough to grab onto that with both hands and never let go. What if I say no? I challenged, even as my hands settled on his chest, feeling his heart pounding as hard as mine. What if I'm not ready for forever with a man I barely know? Then I'll wait, Marco said simply. I'll court you properly if that's what you need. I'll take you on dates, bring you flowers, meet every requirement of traditional romance. But Mia? His forehead touched mine, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. I'll still know how it ends. I'll still know that you're mine and I'm yours, that this is destiny, that we were always meant to find each other. You can take all the time you need to accept it. I'm a patient man when the prize is worth waiting for. And if I never accept it? I had to ask, had to know what would happen if I couldn't take that leap. Pain flickered across Marco's face, quickly masked. Then I'll spend the rest of my life loving you anyway, he said quietly. Protecting you, caring for you, making sure you have everything you need, even if you never give me what I want most. Because that's what you do for the people you love, Mia. You sacrifice your own desires for their happiness. You should know that better than anyone. And that was when I realized the truth that had been hiding in plain sight all week. Marco Valentino, feared boss of one of New York's 5 families. The man who could order death with a word and had more blood on his hands than I wanted to imagine, was the first person in my entire life who'd been willing to sacrifice for me instead of the other way around. My mother needed me, loved me, but she needed my care, my money, my constant attention. My job needed me, relied on me, but I was replaceable, just another nurse willing to work double shifts for barely enough pay. Even my friends, the few I had left after years of canceling plans for extra shifts, needed me to be the strong one, the listener, the problem solver. But Marco? Marco offered to carry my burdens, offered to be strong so I could be soft. Asked for nothing but the chance to love me, protect me, give me the life I'd been too busy surviving to dream about. I'm scared, I admitted, my hands fisting in his shirt. Terrified. Of this, of you, of how much I already feel for you when I shouldn't. When it's too fast and too intense and too much. I know, Marco said gently, his hands sliding into my hair, cradling my head like I was precious, breakable. But fear isn't a reason to run, Dolcezza. Sometimes fear just means you're about to do something brave, something that matters. And loving me, being with me despite the danger and the complications and the absolute insanity of it all? That's the bravest thing you could do. You're assuming I already love you, I said, trying for levity but failing as my voice shook. Marco's smile was knowing and tender. Don't you? Even a little? Even though it's too soon and too fast and makes no logical sense? I couldn't lie to him. Not when he was looking at me like that, not when his heart was pounding under my palms just as hard as mine was, not when he'd been nothing but honest with me from the start. Yes, I whispered. God help me, yes. I think I started falling for you that first night when you looked at me like I was a miracle, instead of just another nurse doing her job. The kiss he gave me then was different from the others, not claiming or possessive, but reverent, grateful, like I'd given him something infinitely precious. His lips moved against mine with a tenderness that made my chest ache, his hands gentle as they held me close. Grazie, amor mio, he murmured against my lips between soft kisses. Thank you for being brave enough to feel this, to admit it, to give me a chance when you had every reason not to. We stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, the abandoned pasta dough and the Sunday dinner forgotten in. Nothing existed beyond this moment, this feeling, this connection that had formed between us in the most unlikely of circumstances. Finally, Marco pulled back with obvious reluctance. Come on, Dolcezza. Let me finish teaching you to make pasta before Anthony sends someone to check if we've killed each other." The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze of flour and laughter, of Marco's hands guiding mine through the pasta-making process, of shared wine and stolen kisses, of a domesticity that felt both foreign and absolutely right. By the time the sun began to set, we had fresh pasta hanging on drying racks and sauce simmering on the stove, filling the kitchen with rich, savory aromas. "My grandmother always said that cooking for someone is an act of love," Marco said as we worked side by side, me chopping basil while he stirred the sauce. "You put your time, your attention, your care into creating something that nourishes them. It's intimate in a way people don't often think about. Is that why you wanted to teach me?" I asked, sneaking a piece of fresh bread to dip in the sauce, moaning slightly at the taste. "To show me you love me through food?" "Partly," Marco admitted, catching my hand and bringing it to his lips, licking the sauce from my fingers in a way that made heat pool low in my belly. "And partly because I wanted to see you in my kitchen, in my space, becoming part of my life in all the small, ordinary ways that matter." Dinner was incredible. We ate at the small table in Marco's kitchen rather than the formal dining room, the intimacy of the space making conversation easy and natural. Marco told me stories about learning to cook with his grandmother, about Sunday dinners with 3 generations of family crowded around a table, about the traditions that had been passed down through the years. "I want that again," he said quietly, his hand finding mine across the table. Family dinners, children running through the house, someone to share my life with beyond just business and responsibility. I want normal Mia as much as someone like me can have normal. And I want it with you. "Children," I repeated faintly. "Marco, we really need to slow down." "I know," he said with a smile. "I'm getting ahead of myself. It's a bad habit of mine. I see what I want and I want it immediately. But I'm trying to be patient, trying to let you catch up to where I already am." "And where are you exactly?" I asked, curious and a little afraid of the answer. Marco stood, pulling me up and into his arms in one smooth motion. We swayed slightly, dancing to music only he could hear, his arms secure around my waist, my head tucked perfectly under his chin. "I'm already planning our wedding," he admitted without shame. "Small and intimate, just family and close friends. I'm imagining you in a white dress. Traditional, but with a modern twist because you're a blend of old and new, respect for the past, but eyes on the future. I'm thinking about the house we'll live in, this one maybe, or somewhere with a garden like you've always wanted. I'm planning the nursery for our first child, picking out names, imagining what they'll look like with your eyes and my stubborn streak." "Marco," I started, but he wasn't finished. "I'm imagining Sunday dinners like this every week for the rest of our lives. I'm seeing you at my side at family events, brilliant and beautiful and so clearly beloved that no one would dare disrespect you. I'm planning all the ways I'm going to make you smile, make you laugh, make you understand that you're cherished and protected and so deeply loved that you'll never doubt it for a moment." Tears were streaming down my face now, overwhelmed by the pictures he was painting, by the absolute certainty in his voice, by how much I wanted all of it despite barely knowing him. "How can you be so sure?" I asked, my voice breaking. "How can you know all of this after just a week?" "Because I've been waiting for you my whole life," Marco said simply, wiping my tears with his thumbs. "Because the moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you. Because when you're this certain about something, when you know in your bones that this is right, you don't waste time pretending otherwise. Life is too short, too uncertain. People like us, who've seen loss and pain and how quickly everything can change, we know better than to hesitate when we find something real." He was right. God, he was right. I'd watched my father die suddenly, watched my mother's mind slip away piece by piece. I'd seen patience come into the ear one moment and gone the next. Life didn't wait for you to be ready, didn't care about your carefully laid plans. Sometimes you had to be brave enough to jump, to trust that someone would catch you. "Okay," I heard myself say. Marco stilled, his dark eyes searching mine. "Okay? Okay, let's do this," I said, my voice stronger now, more certain. "Let's be crazy together. Let's fall too fast and too hard and build something beautiful out of chaos. I don't want to be careful anymore, Marco. I don't want to spend my life playing it safe and wondering what if. If you're sure about us, about me, then I want to be brave enough to be sure too." The sound Marco made was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He lifted me off my feet, spinning me around in the small kitchen, his face buried in my neck. "Say it again," he demanded. "Say you're choosing this, choosing me." I choose you, I said, laughing and crying at the same time. I choose us. I choose this beautiful, terrifying, absolutely insane thing we're building together. When Marco set me down, his hands framed my face with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the fierce emotion in his eyes. I'm going to make you so happy, Dolcezza, he promised. I'm going to spend every day proving you made the right choice. I'm going to love you so completely that you'll never doubt, never fear, never feel alone again. I believe you, I whispered and realized I actually did. That night, Marco drove me home himself, dismissing Giuseppe with a wave. The drive through Brooklyn was quiet, comfortable, my hand tucked securely in his on the center console. When we reached my building, he parked and turned to face me. Move in with me, he said without preamble. I should have been shocked. Should have protested the speed, the presumption. Instead, I just smiled. Soon, I promised. Let me get used to this first, to us. Give me a little time to adjust to my new reality. Marco nodded, accepting my answer with more grace than I'd expected. But not too long, he said. I don't like you here in this neighborhood in a building with inadequate security. I know Antonio is watching over you, but I'd rest easier if you were at my home, in my bed, where I can protect you properly. Patience, remember? I teased, leaning over to kiss him softly. You promised to be patient. I'm trying, he muttered against my lips. But do you have any idea how difficult it is to let you walk away each night? How much I want to keep you with me, wake up next to you, fall asleep holding you. Soon, I said again, meaning it. I promise, Marco, soon. Antonio appeared as if summoned, opening my car door with his usual respectful smile. Good evening, Donna. I trust you had a pleasant day? Wonderful, I said, unable to keep the happiness from my voice. Thank you, Antonio. Marco got out as well, walking me to my building's entrance despite Antonio's presence. At my door, he pulled me close one more time, his forehead resting against mine. Sonidoro, amor mio, he murmured. Sweet dreams, my love. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, I agreed, though letting him go was harder than it should have been after just a day apart. I watched from my window as his car pulled away, my heart full and my mind racing with everything that had happened, everything that was changing. My phone buzzed almost immediately. I miss you already. This is what you've done to me, Dolcezza. Made me weak for you, made me need you like air. Sleep well. Dream of me. And I smiled, typing back, Good night, Marco. Thank you for today. For everything. His response came quickly. You don't need to thank me for loving you, Mia. It's as natural as breathing. As necessary as my heartbeat. You are mine and I am yours. Forever. Forever. The word didn't scare me anymore. Instead, it filled me with a warmth and certainty that felt like coming home. I fell asleep that night planning what I'd need to pack when I moved into Marco's brownstone, imagining Sunday dinners and lazy mornings in a life where I was cherished instead of just needed. Where I could be soft because someone else was willing to be strong. Outside my door, Antonio stood guard, one of Marco's men protecting Marco's woman. And in his brownstone across the city, Marco lay awake, planning our future with the same intensity and focus he brought to everything he did. We were building something beautiful out of chaos. Something real out of impossibility. Something forever out of a single night when I'd chosen compassion over fear and saved the life of a stranger who turned out to be my destiny. The Mafia boss and the nurse. The killer and the healer. The man who dealt in death and the woman who fought to preserve life. We shouldn't have worked. By all logic, we should have been a disaster. But sometimes the most beautiful things are born from the most unlikely circumstances. And sometimes love doesn't wait for the right time, the right circumstances, the right person. Sometimes love just is fierce and immediate and absolutely certain. And you can either be brave enough to embrace it or you can spend your life wondering what if. I chose brave. I chose Marco, I chose us. And I'd never looked back.